Hello. Take a breath. Happy Friday. Nice to see you. I want to talk about where it is that you think that you're living, because most of us think that we're living in our life, in our marriage, in your job, in your role. You think that you're living in that. And let me pause for a minute to say, because I keep forgetting, and people on video are pointing this out to me. I have schmutz on my forehead. One of my clients said, "You have schmutz. What's on your forehead?" I had some procedures done on my aging skin, and I was going to wait to do this video until you couldn't see my procedures. But it's more important that I pass along relevant information than how I look. And so that's why I show up here, sometimes with schmutz on my face. That's just how it goes. Let's get back to talking about you living in your relationship. So most of us think that we are living our life. I think that I have my life and my marriage, and I have my relationship with my kid and my friends and what have you. And here's the truth: you're not. You're not actually living, excuse me, the marriage or the relationship. You're not living in that. What you're living in is the story that you're telling yourself about the marriage, the relationship, the story that you're telling yourself about your health, about your job, about your house, about your kid, your kids, your aging parent, the world, right? Most of us don't realize that we're telling ourselves a story and then we're living within that story. And that most people spend their entire existence there in that story that they're telling themselves about their relationship. And because I work in the relationship space, that's where we're going to focus to talk about this. And when I'm firstly not conscious of the story that I have, then the story that I have runs me, because it's just truth, right? Part of my job in this space, if you haven't noticed, is to agitate you. Part of my job is to help create some discomfort, is to help you see things in a different way. Because until you're agitated, until you recognize the places where there's discomfort, then you won't step in to create meaningful change in your life, in your marriage, in your health, in your work, in anything. You can't, because you'll park yourself in a story, a belief, a narrative, a truth, and you'll stay there. That's what we do. That's what our programming, our conditioning, our practices teach us. Sometimes I get messages from women and they're like, "You seem kind of mean." Like, why did you say that? Or, and I understand that, and it's fine. I'm not trying to be mean. My point is to create a new narrative about how we think about our marriage and our relationships, because the current narrative does not work well for our growth, for our sovereignty, for our full expression of who we are as women, as human beings. The current narrative doesn't work for how it is that we maybe want to show up as sexual, sensual beings in whatever way that might look, because it changes over your life. It's different at 25 than 35 than 45 and 55. And just because you're 55 doesn't mean you're going to have no libido. Some women in their 50s have massive libido, and some people don't. Just depends on you, right? So my job is to help create a new narrative, to help you question the narrative that you have, to help you question how it is that you framed your world. Because until you start looking at how it is that you've created and framed your world, you are going to be stuck in it. You're going to be stuck in having the affairs. You're going to be stuck in feeling miserable. You're going to be stuck in telling yourself you married the wrong person. You're going to be stuck saying to yourself, well, as soon as the kids leave the house, then I will make my move, which is fine. All of those things are totally fine if it is the life that you want to experience. And if it is, beautiful. then you probably don't need to be here, right? But if you're here, if you've elected to be in this space, it's because there's something rattling around in you. Because you don't feel totally in alignment. You don't feel like there's total congruence with what you're doing. And so you're looking for something. Goodness knows there are enough books out there, right? There are enough blogs you can read, all of that stuff. And as I say all the time, it's not enough to know. You can't just know that you're stuck in an internal narrative. You have to know how, and then you have to do it. Woo, that's the big one, the doing it piece. Often when I ask women, I just was speaking with a woman this morning, and I asked her, what does her higher version of herself look like? And she said, I haven't been able to imagine that for 50 years. Which, of course, I know she hasn't, because she hasn't been able to occupy that space either. Right? We have to be able to vision it. Right? And that can be a scary thing, because then it will require us to set down some beliefs, some practices that we don't really, I don't want to say we don't want to, we're just not trained to do that, right? And so right now you might be thinking that you're living in your life. And I want to encourage you to consider that you're living in the narrative around your life, the story that you're telling yourself around your life. And you're also projecting the stories that you have about other people's lives. And then all of the meaning and emotion around that. Right? One of the women who works with me was talking to someone about what I do. And that someone said something to the woman who works for me. Like, well, that's easy for Jenny to do. She lives in Mexico, right? So that's the meaning that this person put on the story of my life, right? And that's just her vision of whatever that is, that somehow I don't have problems, or that it's whatever, or that whatever the thing is, right? We all have that. Like, oh, it must be easy for them because they have money, or it must be easy for them because they post pictures on social media where they're smiling, or, you know, whatever it is that we say. And then we have that story about the other person, and we live in that story, right? That must be truth because I came up with that. And what it is it's a projection, right? We know that, but we do it all the time. And so you're not living in your relationship. You're living in the story that you have around it. And the women who I work with, who are freaking amazing, if I can just say, I've had more women during this pandemic say yes to creating a new story in a meaningful way than I did last year at the same time, right? They have every reason not to, right? But what's so cool is when we start seeing, like, oh no, something's got to change now, we're willing to get more resourceful around the solution than the problem, right? And many of us, and I certainly was this person for a period of time in my life, I was very committed to the problem, right? Whether it was in my relationship or my work or whatever it might be, committed to the story that I had about the problem that kept it alive, right? The only thing your toxic story needs to stay alive is your attention. That's it. And you give it attention, and then you give it a powerful feeling, and then you talk about it, and then you think about it, and then you journal about it, and then you talk about it some more, and then you vent about it, and there it is, right? And the courage that it requires us to step out of that narrative, to even look, to recognize that is extraordinary. And it's brave because it means that now I get to be in charge of creating something new. And what will that look like? It could be anything, right? It could be anything, but what will it be? I don't know. It gets to be yours. So I invite you to pay attention to the story that you have. I invite you to challenge yourself. I want you to be challenged in here. I has never been a place that is supposed to be a dumping ground for women to park in their the argument for their problem. And you'll notice that if you pay attention to the comments that I make with women in here. That's not the point, because there are thousands of places where you can do that. This is a place for very few people, women, who are willing to really take stock of what's happening in their lives. I mean, we can't fix anything until we're willing to take accountability for it, until we're willing to take a step back and look at what we're creating. And then invest our own heart, energy, mind, time in shifting that, right? And as soon as we start to get stretched in anything, whether it's health, whether it's, starting a new business, your relationship, as soon as I get stretched, and I go through this too as I'm expanding my business and doing some other things, what happens? I get stretched and there's something difficult, and then boom, I want to close up. I want to pull back. I want to say, never mind. I want to withhold, right? That's just our tendency. That's very human. The reason why we have people around us who are mentors and guides and therapists and healers and ministers and rabbis and, all the people that we have to support us, yoga teachers and Reiki masters and all the things, right, is that when we want to snap closed, what we do is we invite a way shower to help us exhale. Help me exhale. Help me create a new story in this moment. In this moment. Let this moment be new. Because the moment when you want to shut down, cue old narrative. Well, I don't have the time. I just had this thing. It's never going to, right? And it's going to feel so familiar. So familiar. And it's soothing to have the familiar thing, right? Like mashed potatoes. So soothing, comfort food, right? It feels really good. There's nothing wrong with that. But notice it. Because then we open and we shut down. And then whoop, we go back. One of my very, very favorite things that I get to do in what I do, and I get to do a lot of cool things, let me just say, which I'm so grateful for, is I get to stand with women at that moment when they're like, yes, yes, and then they start shutting down. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm the girl you want with you in that moment because I'm not scared. In that moment, when you want to shut down and you want to retreat and you want to go back into the way that it has been, and let me tell you how hard and how it can and how it not, I'm your girl because I'm the one who will stand there with you. I will not do it for you because I'm not codependent. I will not try to convince you because that is not my job. That is your choice because you have free will. But I will stand there with you in your fear. I will hold space for you. I'm like, oh yeah, hon, I know. I got it. It's cool. I get it. It's fear. We need a midwife in that moment, right? When we want to shut down and we don't want to look at how bad it is or how hard it feels or how impossible it seems or how all of the things that we just want to retreat to the mashed potatoes. And one of the best things I get to do, I did it this morning and I did it on Tuesday also. Tuesday was a great day. Today's a great day because I got to stand with a woman in her fear and help her claim her sovereignty from a toxic belief system, a toxic internal narrative that has been plaguing her for decades. Decades, right? And that's not unusual. All of us, I dare say, in this space, we all have narratives that we're trying to untangle from, right? We're all disentangling. And I don't know that we ever get to a place where we don't have them anymore. I certainly have not. But I'm better at it and I notice them. And I have way showers around me, one today who showed some up for me. And I can open and receive that and say, yes, thank you, more please. Let's continue this growth path. So, a couple of things for you, ladies. I encourage you to pay attention to the narrative that you are living in and that you are living out in your relationship. And if you find that you're somebody who you don't like your relationship, you're angry about it, you think something should change, you think all of those things, right? Then pause and recognize you're creating that with the narrative that you're in. If you want some guidance on what that could look like to do the shift, there are all kinds of places on this page where you can book a call with somebody on my team and talk to them, or me. If I'm doing the calls, I'm happy to chat with you too. If you're somebody who's like, my relationship is rocking and I love it, bravo you. Look at your story. Look at the narrative that you're living in. Notice how powerful you are. And if you're somebody who's maybe in between, who you feel like you have some up days and some down days, then your invitation might be around scarcity. This is how powerful we are, right? Is that as soon as I take my eye off of the prize of what I want in my relationship, right, in my life, in my health, in my wellness, in my well-being, as soon as I shift my focus and I get distracted, boom, I fall off the balance beam, right? I fall off getting the outcomes that I want. I fall off having the experience because now I'm focusing on this other thing. And it's been 3 weeks since I've meditated, gone to yoga, engaged in my spiritual practice, whatever it is that keeps me robust and healthy and grounded and available in the ways that I want to be, right? So pay attention to your narrative. If you are someone who's like right on the precipice, you're like, I know these are I have so many different kinds of favorite women. The other kind of favorite women I have are the ones who are like, I am done doing it the way I'm doing it. I am done. I'm not doing it one more day. Those are like my kind of ladies, because that's how I am. When I'm finished, I'm finished. I'm just done. I decide. Finished, and I'm never doing it again. And I don't ever, right? And the women who say, I'm done, but I don't know how, right? We just need the how. If you have the commitment part, the knowing that I am not telling the same damn story about my partner one more time. I cannot listen to myself say the same thing to my best friend. It makes me want to throw up, right? That means your willingness to leave the old, right, is pretty high. And then you couple that with personal commitment. It's amazing. Amazing. And you, my dear, can move the mountain of your own life. It is possible. 1,000%. So thank you so much for being here on this lovely Friday. Thank you for tolerating my schmutzy forehead. It's going to be lovely and spot-free in 2 weeks. And I will look forward to seeing you all before then. And have a wonderful weekend. And please post any comments on the bottom of this feed if you have additional questions or if you have a takeaway from something that I said. Would love to see it. Love engaging with you. Have a wonderful afternoon or evening.